diplomacy is meaningless for the Iranian regime. And it makes the international dilemma right now because the global community faces the paradox of Iran violating international laws with impunity and launching terrorist attacks, which questioning the defensive response of Israel and the United States.
I want to start, Irfan, by considering the balance between deterrence and diplomacy, which I know you've written about. And where is that balance? Are we striking that balance right now? Is the US, is Israel striking that balance with Iran right now?
Personally, I believe it's much better that we look at the issue from the realistic point of view. About the military over diplomacy, personally, I believe right now for Iran, military is more important than diplomacy because Iran's foreign policy, while outwardly diplomacy, is driven by the military ambitions of the IRGC and Quds Force, with the foreign ministry acting as a cover for espionage effort. So diplomacy is meaningless for the Iranian regime. And it makes the international dilemma right now because the global community faces the paradox of Iran violating international laws with impunity and launching terrorist attacks, which questioning the defensive response of Israel and the United States. This is my personal view based on the realism in international relations that I told you.
Is that backed up, do you think, by the fact, it would seem, that Iran often talks aggressively about retaliation on Israel or towards Israel, but in reality, that either comes through proxies or doesn't materialize, it would seem, directly from Iran in any other way?
Uh, there are definitely a possible reaction, but apparently no decision has been made yet inside the hardcore of Iranian regime, and they are assessing what to do in completing foggy and unclear situation. However, on one hand, Khamenei has said something, and in other hand, a faction of the regime in Tehran, they seeks to preserve the regime's life and regime interest, and they don't want to jeopardize the future of the regime. Apparently, there is some communication between Iran and the United States, specifically with the Democrat president in the White House, and probably a kind of limited and defined response within a specific framework is expected. But 2 points is important here for the European countries. This regime is unstable, you know much better than me, because of the economy, internal situation, and the lacks of stability, and it's facing a crisis. That is not necessary to mention all of them. And in outdated regime that doesn't belong to this era, so surely it will collapse sooner or later, this century or next one. But the important point, until this cancerous tumor, I mean the terrorism and radicalism, is not surgically removed, so the Middle East region will not see peace and tranquility at all. So personally, I believe for the Western countries, specific for Europe and the United States, they are trying to control the escalation of the crisis. This is the main point right now on the stage.
Is it working?
I believe no, because this regime in Tehran, they don't understand the meaning of stability and peace. They wanted to be a dominant power in the region, and definitely they don't respect the international laws. And the peaceful existence with them is impossible right now.
Do they have regional dominance? And if so, to what extent?
Right now, the Iranian government, they try to actually inject their revolutionary ideas that we can translate or interpret into the Khomeinism ideology. They wanted to be a dominant power, but we have another three countries that they wanted to be a dominant power in Middle East. One of them is Turkey, another one is Saudi Arabia, another one is Israel. Right now, two players are attacking each other. One of them, Israel, is the main ally of the Western countries, and another one, which is Islamic Republic of Iran, is in the orbit of Russia and China and North Korea. So this conflict, it is a chaos for the Middle East. And the two orbits, realistically, they made this crisis. And definitely, Iran cannot tolerate that. Why? Because the ideology of Iran is not modern. And the Iranian young generation inside Iran, they jeopardize the interests of the regime because they don't believe that. And the Iranian people, they don't want it to be in war. So personally, I believe right now this is a challenge for Iran internally and internationally. So we cannot say it is a successful dominant. No, not at all.
That's really fascinating. And what does that mean? What do those generational considerations and the instability within Iran, what do these things that you've mentioned, these aspects, what do they mean for Iran's proxies that we frequently talk about, like Hezbollah, for example? Does that mean that factions and groups like these will disintegrate over time?
If we talk based on the facts, we can say factually this regime has relations with the 21 transnational terrorist network that in universities we call, say, that TTN or transnational terrorist network. So 21 group, they have relations with Iran, and Iran is the main source financially and politically and militarily for these groups. And it's made a chaos after 1979. And right now, all the records shows that the Iranian regime, they don't have the support of the Iranian inside Iran because the regime is solely engaged in psychological warfare and in one step away from collapse. And this is very clear. Why? Because in environmentally, economically, politically, internally, we can say Iran is a failed state. So right now, this is the main problem. And the entire effort of the regime is focusing on internal suppression to prepare the ground for succession of Khamenei in order to preserve the Shia Islamic Caliphate. This is their main goal. But the regime lacks the courage and capability to attack. It means something else for the Iranian young generation that in the social media, you can see that in English, Persian, and different languages, that the Iranian people, they are not with the regime. And it makes a different story for them because when you don't have the support internally, definitely internationally, you cannot play a good role. And it means more isolation internationally.